السلام عليكم شيخ.
Can you hear me now? Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
وعليكم السلام.
How was your week?
Alhamdulillah, good. Yourself?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, good.
So what's the background behind you?
I don't know, I just picked it. It's my fun with Zoom. Is pretends to be in holy places. Alhamdulillah.
Let me get the real background. There we go.
Oh yeah, you too, mashallah. And so, inshallah, can we make some du'as for Sheikh Samir's mother and also Sheikh Nuruddin Aitar, inshallah, Sheikh.
So just to share with everybody, for those who are unaware, first of all, our teacher, Shaykh Samir al-Nas, hafidhahullah ta'ala, wa nafa'ana Allahu bih, took a lot of, particularly from Quran, and also fiqh from him, both in Sham, both in Syria, as well as here in England. So his mother passed away this morning. His mother died in Damascus this morning, and she was buried today. And so we're asking everybody to pray for her. Allah subhanahu grants her the highest of Firdaus. She's from a blessed family. Our own son, Shaykh Samir al-Nas, is perhaps the best, amongst the best of all evidences for what she's about. But so anyway, even the Salihin or Salihat, the righteous men and women of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we still pray for them, more so for our own connection with them. That's more of our concern. So that's the first. And inshallah ta'ala, we've arranged that we're going to have a Khatam al-Quran for her on Friday. So we ask you all to join in the Khatam al-Quran and start reading Ajza al-Quran for her. And then second, perhaps the leading scholar of Hadith in these times, Shaykh Nuruddin Aitar, hafidhahullah ta'ala. He's seriously ill at the moment. He's on a ventilator at the moment. He's elderly, but he's one of the greatest muhaddithin alive. So again, Shaykh Nuruddin Aitar, hafidhahullah ta'ala, he's written so many great works that I personally and others have benefited from. Just to clarify, because I know Dr. Javed has an issue with this. So he is my teacher in that I sat in one class of his. This was in 1999 in Jamia Shamsiyya, where he's teaching from Bulugh al-Maram. I happened just to be passing by, sat in there, heard a few hadith. So he's my Shaykh. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu said, "Ana abdu man allamani mas'ala." I'm a slave to the one who teaches me even one.
I'm going to have to start writing a tabaqat of all of my teachers now, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Let's go for an easy question as an opener.
Dr. Sab, hold on a second. You can start dealing because I've got interruptions here. Musa's joining me in the background. Fatima's here as well, and they're harassing me. Well, let me deal with these while you answer some questions.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. I'm not really going to I'm not going to answer any questions, but just in case you missed the initial announcement, you can vote for questions just to prioritize the ones that people want to hear more desperately than others. I see some people have already possibly voted for their own question. But
what is this? Is it a vote for questions?
Yeah. This is a democracy we're running here. It's a trial. We might bring back the autocracy.
Remember, Dr. Javed, do you remember back in the 90s when Hizb ut-Tahrir were popular and there was all this discussion about democracy being kufr?
Yeah. You bought that argument, did you? Yeah, one time for a bit. Yeah, mashallah.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if I had.
Okay, let's just get this. Let's get an easy one out of the way before we start. Can a woman listen to Quran during labor?
You tell me.
Yeah, sure. Why not? You can listen to Quran pretty much.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, my connection is breaking up. But
Yeah.
go on, yeah. You give the answer, please. You're a mufti and a.
I'm a blagger, but I would, from what I've understood, there's no problem listening to Quran during labor, and so unless you have other information.
And no, you're absolutely spot on. Not only is it that she can, so one of the best things that she can do for a child, like the unborn child getting exposed to Quran instead of like whatever women are watching these days and all the foul language and all. You're letting your unborn child.
What are they watching, Sheikh?
I have no idea. You tell me.
Yeah, it's just like you seem to have a little bit more information there. But okay,
I have no idea. It's Husnain's not joined us today because I think he knows about all of this stuff.
yeah.
Actually, no, Haroon, Mr. Rawdah Trust. I'm sure you'll know what do women for.
Yeah, we'll pick his brains, mashallah, and his
Yeah,
search history.
so on that, like the unborn child has the soul from 120 days after conception. So there's consciousness taking place there. So the more Quran that she listens to, she's not just listening, the unborn child's listening. Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, let's try this question. I'm in my second, or was in my second marriage, and my husband, father to my 4-year-old, ended up having a drug addiction, and we've been separated over a year. And he gave me talaq, but now he's saying that he was under the influence, so it doesn't count. That's what he's claiming. He doesn't pay for son's upkeep and left her in debt, which threatens, and he threatens not to pay and uses it to sort of torture her mentally. Should we deal with the first bit in terms of is the talaq valid?
Yeah, it is valid. Talaq is sakaran. So somebody's intoxicated, whether it's under the effect of drink or drugs, even if he doesn't know what he's saying. Yeah, it does count. It does count. So that talaq does count. Normally, when a person's lost control of his mind, like he's insane or he's unconscious or fainted, that's when it doesn't count. But even if that person like completely stoned or completely drunk to the point they don't know what they're saying, if they said talaq, it counts. It counts as a punishment and as a deterrent. So that's the first part. So definitely the divorce does count.
Just as a slight addition to that, I know it's not a very common situation, but let's just say somebody really honestly didn't know what the word meant, and a friend for a laugh said, "Say this to your wife," then it wouldn't count, right?
No, it would count.
Even if you didn't understand the meaning of the word at all.
See, if there's a situation there I don't know the answer to, and I need to look into it. If somebody told a person, say this word, and it's in a different language, but it happens to be divorce, and he told him say a word, and it's in Mandarin, for example, in Cantonese or in Korean, and he has got no idea, but it turns out to be divorce. Does that count as talaq? There, I don't know. But if it's in his own language, so say divorce or say talaq, and then he says, I don't know what that means. That seems a bit far-fetched. The principle here, and it's worth picking up on your point, the Prophet ﷺ said, ثلاث جدهن جد وهزلهن جد. There are three things which, if said seriously, are serious, and if they said as a joke, are also serious. And nikah wa talaq, marriage, divorce, and the third, I think he said, was freeing a slave. So pretty much in every situation, a divorce will count, except for when a person has lost his mind through other than intoxicants. Allahu Akbar.
Sayyidina Adam, if he was 60 cubits tall, why are we so short? I want to know that. He says, "Oh, why am I so short?"
Are you 60 centimeters tall? A little.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
I don't get the question about why. You could turn that around and say, why did Allah create him so tall? And in most mythology of human civilizations, there's always talk of giants. When we look at that 60 cubits, which comes in authentic hadith, they were giants, right? But then the Prophet said human beings then they dropped in size. I don't know, like, mashallah, you were a great talib al-ilm, student of knowledge, and you went to Damascus as well.
For a holiday, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if you did ziyarah of Habil and Qabil, the two sons of Adam alayhi salam. Qabil, which is, I think that's Cain. I forget which one, but because, and in some tafsir al-Khazin, he mentions that the first killing took place on Jabal Qasun. It actually took place on the mountain overlooking Damascus. Just outside of Damascus, it's only a few kilometers outside. He's actually buried there. You see that they were giants.
Yeah.
He was absolutely gigantic in size.
Even Hud, I hear his grave is enormous.
Yeah.
But
So, like, why are we so short? The Prophet said the human beings have dropped in size since then. Why Allah created that? I can't answer that. I don't know.
But even in our current situation, in our current times, I mean, we don't have such a vast difference in height, but we do have some nations are significantly smaller, right? And when you look at in the Andaman Islands, have you seen them? The Negritos in the Andaman Islands, they're tiny, and compare that to some of the sort of larger nations on this earth. There's still quite a difference. I know. But yeah, why?
Also, just to add on to that, not just were they physically so much taller, but their lifespans were significantly longer as well.
Yeah.
And it said that Nuh lived for 1,400 years, and that was normal. That was Bani Israel, like people live 500 years or more. So not only physically were they significantly larger, but even their lifespans were larger. But here's one for you, Dr. Saab. Somebody else says that all just doesn't seem right to them, because we don't see any of that. So even though these ahadith are authentic, he says, no, I don't accept these.
What exactly? The long lifespans, or
Both. And we have no evidence to confirm their gigantic sizes and their extraordinary lifespans.
So what's the question?
So somebody turns around and says, I don't accept a hadith like that because it makes no sense whatsoever to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's just their problem. I mean, because I don't see how any of that is impossible. I mean, if you believe that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala can do what He wants, what's the problem? You know, like if you look at the size. Sorry.
What's this one? Musa, can you tell Fatima to get me right? Sorry, I'm putting an order in.
No worries. If you look at the size of the angels, or if you look at the size of the other creations of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, the other planets, if you look at our sun compared to the other suns, our sun is tiny. It's almost a speck compared to the size of other suns. Look at the size of creatures, right? You have creatures of massively different sizes that dwarf the human being, and human beings dwarf the size of other creatures. In terms of the lifespan, I don't get that. But Allah decides when He takes your soul. The only reason you die is because your soul is taken. If it's not taken, you just continue to live. So I mean, I don't get that. But you know, it's not really my problem.
Okay.
What do you say?
سمعنا وأطعنا. We hear and we obey. Yeah. Are you older than me, by the doctor, sir?
When were you
How old
born?
are you?
Me?
I'm 48. How old are you?
No. I'm spring chicken compared to you. I'm like
Well, I was going to say
44.
I was going to say I have to accept your opinion because you're an elder, but forget you now.
Yeah. Okay, so organ donation after death. is it permissible to remove organs from a body after death? And would you recommend this, especially since it's hard to find donors from Southeast Asian Muslim communities? And would it be permissible just to receive organs if we are in a life or death situation when we don't donate organs ourselves?
Jazakallah khairan, Saraj. Just a quick answer on this, because I'm not really that qualified. Mashallah. Oof, that's hot. Thank you. Got my cup of tea, and just to share it with everybody, let's have a look there. This is what the little one's got me. I don't know if you can see it. Coolest, coolest dad.
Is he just letting you borrow it?
Yeah, so organ donations. I know there's a lot of imams and scholars here in England who say it's allowed. But our teacher, Shaykh Haroon, ta'ala, he gives fatwa, and I go with his opinion on this because I don't have an opinion on the matter. He said it's not allowed unless it's life and death, unless it's to save a person who's dying, and it's a direct case, not just like harvesting organs, keeping them for a later time. So in that particular question that the brothers mentioned, so if we're in a life or death situation, and you can receive, then you can receive that. So he mentioned that. But as a general rule, he said it's forbidden. Allahu Akbar.
For another marriage-ish type question. So what's the situation when a wife has really solid reasons for wanting a divorce, and the husband's adamant not to give her divorce? Going through the Sharia councils seems to be the only option. An appointed representative from both sides have come, but there's no Islamic knowledge involved. Sharia councils is your favorite thing, right?
What's up? You know my view on Sharia councils.
Yeah, that's why we're waiting to hear your answer.
You know my views. I don't even know. Yeah, I just think they're just a waste of space. Sharia councils. Is Burhan on? Because I think he's an advocate. I think he's an advocate of Sharia councils. I think he's trying to set one up by himself.
Yeah.
But no.
Just one quick point about Sharia councils. I don't know about this details of every single one, but just to say that it should be remembered that they all operate very differently. We say Sharia council, but none of them really operate in any uniform fashion. So when we sort of make a judgment on Sharia councils, and part of the thing that you need to look at is how the specific ones operate. Yeah. But then there's if you explain sort of maybe the more general issue with Sharia councils, and whether they have any authority or not.
Okay, I mean, just leaving that aside, just in terms of the sister herself, she says that if a woman has a ground for divorce and the husband adamant not to, the sequence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about in the Quran, the first one, فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. Bring forward a mediator from his family and from her family. So bring people, and the key thing the sister mentioned is that they've come from each side, but there's no Islamic knowledge. That's not the point. The hakam, the mediator, to adjudicate and try and resolve should be somebody who has some understanding of how to resolve the issue, and also has concern for the family. More often than not, right now, families are the problems themselves. So it may well need mediators who are unconnected to the family, but will be able to guide and advise them. If that does not help, then pressure should be put on the husband. If she has real sound grounds, like for example, he's violent towards her, domestic violence, he's not providing for her, committed adultery, and she doesn't want to stay with him anymore, she's finding it too hard and so on, then yes, some type of pressure needs to be applied onto him by people around him to end the marriage. If he's the cause, then you have what's called khula'. And this is the issue with Sharia councils. The problem of khula is that the meaning of it is being altered from what comes in the Quran and the Sunnah. And that's what these Sharia councils are now applying. Khula is a release from the marriage, where the woman comes and offers a financial payment to release herself from the marriage, which the example that the first khula case that took place in the time of the Prophet was the dowry. It can be the dowry that's returned back. Although to add, the fuqaha stated that if he's causing the problem, then it's haram for him to accept any payment. Rather, he should release her from the marriage. After that, it's difficult because in a Muslim state, you will go to a qadi, a judge. Here, you don't have that. So the problem with Sharia councils is they've created a system where they're going to start annulling the marriage. That doesn't work in Sharia. You can't just some person, even if the scholars, they can't just sit amongst themselves and start passing judgment and ending marriages. So it does become difficult there. We don't really have a clear answer to that here. But setting up councils doesn't resolve that issue. Allah.
Sure. Actually, a growing problem. This next question is about homosexuality. Oh, Sheikh's gone.
No, I'm here.
I thought you were doing a runner and trying to call Hussein to help us out.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you deal with homosexuality when when there's a fear or it actually has arisen in your family? You know, say like your child, and if I can just get you to answer it in terms of a young child, like a proper dependent, and so an older member of the family, if you could sort of, because I would assume that maybe they're two different considerations.
My suspicion, I mean, the question can clarify this, but my suspicion is that that's a discussion perhaps about a younger child, like a teenager who's still dependent upon you, as opposed to...
Yeah. That's the feeling I get.
It's a nightmare scenario. It really is a nightmare scenario. At that point, it becomes so difficult because at that point, sitting down and talking to them and open with them. And it's not necessarily that parents have failed there, it's just that it's all thrust down the children in schools and out of schools and everything that they're watching and all the electronic devices, that's normal behavior in schools. That's the agenda. That's the agenda in schools right now to change them. So I don't think that's a failure of parents there. That's just the effect of everything that's around them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of coming in every single household, no matter what they try and do. It's arising in all of them, and it's definitely become wajib on TV to present things like that in every single program, I guess.
So I think here parents can just freak out about it because it's something that's so alien to our culture, our religion. It's alien to being a human being. So like as a father and mother, you're going to freak out about it and you're going to try every measure to try and force the child to stop. But once a door has been opened, to close it becomes so difficult just to move that person away from it. So I don't know, Allah, and I think it's about like talking openly and frankly to them about why it's wrong, and then see the problem is like closing avenues. They've already been opened. So Allah, it's such a nightmare scenario, that one. Allah.
Sufi silsilas.
What are those?
We'll find out. Is it correct that each link effectively shows a chain of transmission of the knowledge of Allah, ma'rifah, being passed down from the Shaykh to the Murid through the generations?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll leave you to answer that. I believe you're a Sufi master.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a transmission of ma'rifah. Ma'rifah happens to individuals. It's not like passed down from the sheikh, but the sheikh shows you the path, and his training comes from his sheikh, right? And his training and understanding comes from his sheikh and so on and so forth. But the ma'rifah is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he gives it, that was my understanding. But wallahu alam. Homeschooling, right? So I've taken the step not to send. This is from Natasha. I've taken the step not to send my 4-year-old to school this year and intend to homeschool him due to the RSC program. I guess that links back to one of the earlier questions and the impact I feel school will have on his iman. I'm nervous and also feel like I can't do this on my own. Are you able to advise?
Dr. Joff, do you homeschool your kids or are they in school?
Yeah.
Homeschool?
Yeah. Eldest has gone to, he's just like on his second day of trying a Islamically orientated school.
What were the main struggles
What was the main struggles?
in homeschooling?
Routine. That might just be my kids, but getting them into a routine where at a certain time they start their work and a certain time they finish their work, that was left a bit open. But to be honest, my wife did most of the homeschooling at the early phase, so she taught them about how to read and things like that. But even if they learn to read a bit later than other kids, it's no big deal. They catch up so quickly, and nobody asks at this stage, what age did your kids start reading at? And what age they want to learn basic literacy and numeracy, and there's loads of good books to help. Then after that, you can do as much of it by yourself, or as little of it by yourself as you want. There's whole schools, literally whole schools that run online, completely online. And you can take whatever subjects you want. And this is for the slightly older kids. And there are other homeschooling networks and groups in every single area that you can sort of lean on. And then you find your own way, but it's nothing to be. What's scary is sending your kids to school. That should be what we're scared about.
The reason why I asked you that question is that, like, from our own experience with our kids, there are so many problems with it. Like problems like routine that you mentioned, disciplining your kids. You're so familiar with your kids are so familiar with you, that it's usually often better that they take it from somebody else. Then you got pressure of families, like, why aren't you putting them in school? So there's so many potential heads on the way. But when you look at the wider picture, the damage of school is far worse than anything. And even the worst case scenario that they come out and they're not getting good grades, and doesn't matter, you protect them from the kufr and the fitna that's in schools. So my advice is that when you're hitting those hurdles, just keep on going, just don't give up on it. There are times when myself and my wife as well, we felt that maybe this is too much. This is just so much easier putting in school. But then even with that, like when you see that your kids are being raised in a beautiful environment, that you're creating that little oasis of faith in your own home, and then you want to give them over to people who are going to make them into homosexuals, into kafir, murtad, and khalas, even if they come out dumbed down kids, they're still believers at the end.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, isn't it? Like, what would you want as a parent? Do you want a child who's in some fancy job but doesn't believe and mocks the religion, or do you want someone who either has no job or has a humble job but is a devout believer, or at least that's your hope? But I mean, not every kid's so different, and if you find them resisting and things, then maybe school is on the whole better for them. But there's loads of people you can lean on and ask for help, and people with great experience. And there's no single way of doing it. And when we say homeschooling, it doesn't mean that you or your spouse has to physically do the teaching. There's no rule to say that. You can get people in to do elements of teaching or certain levels of teaching. There's so many resources out there. It's never been as easy to homeschool as it has now. And the other thing is, you don't need to spend the same amount of time as, like when kids go to school at 8 o'clock and they come back at about 3 something. You don't need to spend that much time teaching your kids at home, because it's only 1 kid or 2 kids or 3 kids. So you should be able to get through the work a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Is that your spiel done now?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good to hear. That's why we got you on here. We want to hear an alternative view. Otherwise, we'll have to get Haroon on, and I don't want to hear what he has to say.
Okay, let's go for an easy one quickly. What's the best salawat for loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ma huwa ahla. Let's repeat that. Jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ma huwa ahla. Allahu a'lam. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Imam Nawawi never got married, which is quite well known. But anonymous attendee has heard from some students of knowledge that some books mention that Imam Nawawi had concubines. Do you happen to know if this is true?
Allahu a'lam. I've not heard of that, but ana jahil wa the little reading that I've done, I've not come across that he had concubines. It's possible. Allahu a'lam. But anybody who says, like some Farsi mufti here in England who starts accusing Sayyidina Imam Nawawi of having homosexual inclinations, that type of person should be publicly punished for making comments like that. Like the fact that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala never married is because of devotion to the religion. There's nothing to indicate that he had such foul inclinations. He may have had concubines, Allah. I'm not aware of that. Allah.
Micro, is it on this week? Someone's trying to like, is impatient for admin to contact them. They want to know.
All I know, Liverpool are playing Leeds at 5:30 on Saturday. Yeah. So, inshallah, it's not on.
Inshallah. Okay. Yeah. Right. If you adopt a child, I know a few families now, mashallah, they've adopted children, and it's a massive khidmah. But the issue of mahram, ghair mahram, what's the situation?
No, a foster child and an adopted child does not become mahram. Mahram requires that milk is given from the wife younger than up to the maximum the age of 2.5.
2 lunar years, 2.5 lunar years.
Lunar years, yeah. 2 is the view the majority of Hanif says 2.5, and because of the need here, then that view is perfectly accepted. So we can say up to 2.5. Beyond that, there's no accepted view that says anything more than that. So the only way of creating that relationship is through milk. But then at the same time, because often kids that are adopted are already older than that age, so there's no solution to that. Yet, this is a personal thing. I feel that even though they're not mahram when they get to that age, it's more important that they're raised in the house of Muslim than they're left for non-Muslims to raise them as an unbeliever. So even though there will become technical issues around hijab and so on, it's more important that they're in the houses of Muslims. Allahu a'lam. So they don't become mahram, but they should still be raised.
Somewhat connected, is the stepfather mahram to the daughters? If so, what are the etiquettes, and how do we as daughters, how are we able to accept someone new into our homes?
Yeah, no, stepfather is mahram. That's وَرَبَائِبُكُمُ اللَّاتِي فِي حُجُورِكُم. Allah speaks about stepdaughters being mahram. Sure, but with the condition that the marriage was consummated. So as long as then yeah, stepfather is mahram. So you can treat your stepfather as your own father.
Mm-hmm. Did you like take it slowly? You know, just
Perhaps, but
because the reality is that he's a stranger.
yeah, you're right. It's stranger, but that's in any relationship. And then there's a further issue. Like if they get married, if like the mother gets married to, she gets married again, and they're still young children, then the father has the right to insist that his children were not raised by the stepfather, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Anti ahaqqu bihi ma lam tankahi." You are worthiest of having your children as long as you don't remarry. So if the mother gets married again and the child is still young, being raised by her, she loses the automatic right to raise the child. So there is that factor. But let's say now they're older, because when you say accept someone into your home, I'm getting the impression from that the daughter's now older. So that's just about building a relationship with your stepfather. Yeah.
Can a mother force her baligh son to marry someone against his wishes? It's a tough one.
It's not really a tough one. It's just there's a legal answer. A man doesn't need permission of anybody to get married. A woman does. According to the majority, the woman does. With the
So this
Hanif,
is not about permission, though, is it? This is about a command from the mum.
yeah, that's the point now. So, like, as a legal point, straightforward, a man can get married to anybody that he wants. The mother's insistent, then the higher maqam definitely is to accept. The higher status is definitely is to accept. But if he feels that it's not best for him, that the wife that's being suggested is not going to raise, not going to be the best mother for his children, and so on, he can make a stance there, and he can politely refuse, even though she's going to threaten him with everything, and curse him and disown him.
Would it be a difference if like the mum was known to be like pious and devout and or just routine?
No, to the ideal. What the question speaking about forcing, the ideal is that if you're raised in a good household, your father and mother, and they understand you, there's none of this generational gap where they're seeing things very different to you. The ideal is just to hand all of that over to your mum. That's the ideal, but that's difficult for most people now. It's all about falling in love, right? It's all about love, mate.
Yeah.
Go on.
We destined to marry our partners? Is it something like we do share the same soul? Yeah. What's that? What we saying there?
I'm not saying nothing. You're saying something there.
Yeah. I can't help it. I've read too much poetry.
Okay. What a lover after all, aren't you? You're a true lover.
Okay, so from Aqidah, this is another question. From Aqidah, we understand that we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to call people into Jannah. Can the people who are non-Muslims be called into Jannah?
No. إن الله إنه من يشرك بالله فقد حرم الله عليه الجنة. Those who commit shirk with Allah, Allah's made haram for him Jannah. We just started Surah Yasin today, study Surah Yasin, and inshallah we'll get to there for those who are attending. One of the meanings of إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون. Truly the inhabitants of paradise today are in work, enjoying themselves. So the meaning of shughul is that they're so occupied enjoying the pleasures that the distress of knowing that they have family members who are suffering in hellfire will be taken away from them. So simple, the answer is no. Allah. And just to add further to that, When you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed people of Jannah and whatever they want, but He's also forbidden the people of unbelief from entering into Jannah. So it's His rules, and that's what He set. Allahu Akbar.
Okay. So another marriage-related question. They're coming thick and fast today. What advice are you going to give brothers and sisters who are nervous about getting married, hesitant even, because they think that they are not religious enough, or don't have enough knowledge, or don't practice enough, or don't have enough sustenance to support a marriage? Any advice?
Just get married. Stop messing around. Just get married.
Yeah.
Just get married. Just get married. Don't mess about. Too many people in haram relationships, but when it comes to halal, gotta think it out so carefully and be so. Just get married.
True.
Rizq will come.
Yeah.
Ilm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You don't know enough about it, so take on the responsibility of getting to know all about it.
Yeah.
So just get Fatima. They should get married, shouldn't they? Yeah. So yes.
We're getting a fatwa from Fatima.
Fatima. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get married.
It is daunting, though. I don't know how many years it's been for yourself, but it is daunting.
I've lost track. Well, of course it is. Of course it is. But still, just do it.
Okay. Sister coming from Muslim land to marry and live in the UK without ever meeting their intended husband. Intended husband. How does her potential husband help her feel welcome and adjust? And what advice would you give to her?
What's your question, that one?
Why is it my question?
I've no idea, because you're the lover. That's why. And I've got 2 little kids I need to get rid of. So you answer that question.
No. This is your question. Yeah. This is. We need to hear from you here.
Let's come back to that. Let's come back to that question.
Okay, we'll come back to it. Okay. Oh yeah, we've had this before, but it's such a important and common question. Du'as and dhikr to deal with sadness. What's the best one?
There's loads for sadness and distress and worry. Have a word of salawat. When you're feeling down, just read, like, for example, 100 Darood Sharif salawat. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin. 100 times. The Prophet mentioned that. Inshallah, Thaqib's gonna share these. And the other one, Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Just read a lot. Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Peace. There's many other awrad and adhkar of the Prophet. That's just a couple of them.
Okay. Paranoia. That's a new question for us. Dealing with paranoia. What is there any du'as for that you're aware of?
I don't know, and inshallah we have another session in 2 weeks' time, so I'll look and search for something. Let me get rid of these 2. These are annoying me now. Just 1 second. Okay, I've got them to agree. I've got Musa to agree to sit down.
Okay, mashallah. So, where were we? Okay, going back to talaq under the influence.
Yeah.
We said that was a valid talaq that's happened. How do you get back together again?
How do you get back together again? Assuming here that talaq was 3 talaq. Because for some reason most people assume that's the only way to divorce, even though it's haram to do that. So we're assuming here 3. If he did the correct way, which is unlikely because he was under the influence of drugs, and he divorced her once, then it's straightforward. They just do a new nikah. The probability is he's done 3, so there's no way of getting back unless the wife, she's married somebody else, and naturally this all should happen naturally, not set up. No halal services being encouraged. Right? So she gets married to somebody else who eventually divorces her, and then she's able to return back to the original husband. But it shouldn't be set up, because the Prophet said, "La'an Allah al-muhallil wa al-muhallal lahu." The curse is the one who made it lawful, the one she was made lawful for, i.e. the first and the second husband.
You're
So
supposed to look for see how well you can do.
New Muslim question we got here. What's essential to memorize after memorizing like namaz and Surah Ikhlas? And in what order should they memorize?
Number one, learn Surah Al-Fatiha. And then after that, within the prayer, like for example, you should learn your At-Tahiyat, Tashahhud, with the Takbir and Salams, they're the essentials. And then after that, the rest of the prayer can be done at any pace, in any order. And then you just keep on learning set surah. So the important thing, you must learn to say Allahu Akbar, you must learn Al-Fatiha, you must learn At-Tahiyat, the Tashahhud, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and learn the rest of your prayer and the rest of the surah. Allahu Akbar. Okay, now I'm going to have to get rid of these.
So just a reminder for those who joined us late, you can still vote on questions. Right, we've got Shaykh back. When does, this is from Ibrahim Malik, when does a conversation become excessive talk which deadens a heart, as the Prophet ﷺ said, even if everything spoken is halal?
One of the signs of excessive talk that's mentioned by the ulama is that you find it hard to be silent. You feel that you always need to say something. And where silence is difficult for you, that's a sign that you're talking too much. Allahu Akbar.
Okay. Asma Rahman is following up on the organ donation question and asking, wouldn't all organ donation be life and death situation?
Potentially, yeah. But the life and death is that if you're dying and there's somebody who's dying whose life could be saved by your organs being given to that person, that's when it's life and death. Where it's saving an instant, or at that moment there's a case that needs that. Allahu Akbar.
But there's a lot of donation that probably isn't life and death. I mean, like corneal transplants, that's not really life and death, but obviously at that point your sight is impaired massively, and there are other transplants that occur which are a bit even more revolting, to be honest. Poo transplants.
What?
Poo transplants. They take someone's feces. For people with gut problems, they take someone's feces and they implant it in you. So yeah, there's a lot that's not life and death.
Thanks a lot for letting us know about that. That's nice.
You'd love it, really. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is a really good one. Is it permissible to have pets neutered? I've got a cat, and I'll be honest, when she was a stray, we didn't know whether she was neutered or not, but I didn't have the heart to find out.
Masha, Fatima, these are getting two kittens tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're getting 2 kittens tomorrow.
We'll have to see them next Q&A session. We'll have to see them.
What do you reckon? Next Q&A in 2 weeks, we'll have the... Stay there. Don't you start this time. We'll have 2 kittens on either side. Before you, Fatima. So, yeah, in the books of fiqh, they state it's allowed. But, so in the books of fiqh, the Hanafi books, they mention that it's allowed. Well, Shaykh Samir al-Nas, hafidhahullah ta'ala, he mentioned the ta'leel that's given, the reason that's given, they said, لِتَطْيِيبِ اللَّحْمِ, to make the flesh of that animal more succulent. He says that doesn't apply to cats because they're not lawful to eat. He said when you look at the reason that they gave, it's only talking about animals that are lawful to eat, not animals that are forbidden. So his fatwa is that it's not allowed because the reason that's given. But most of the Hanafis do allow it because in the text of the madhab, it clearly states it's allowed. Allahu A'lam.
Hanifis, can they add extra supplications in prayers?
Let's go back to the top one.
I thought you'd missed that one.
No, I've seen it. Go on.
Can you read it out then?
The question is to Dr. Javed, are concubines allowed? Is your wife nearby?
She's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go on then, carry on.
No, you can answer it.
No, I was only asking the question, I'm not answering it.
Okay, right. Right. So, can Hanafis add extra supplications in the prayers, in ruku and sujood, and sitting? And is this different? I'm adding this next bit. Is it different for fard and supererogatory prayers?
Yeah, I was going to answer with that. So the Hanafis say it's allowed in Sunnah and in Nafil prayers. You can add pretty much anything you want there, except that it has to be a dua from the Quran and Sunnah. You can't create your own dua. But in fard prayers, it's preferable not to. The Prophet ﷺ, when we follow his Sunnah, his way was that fard prayers were left without extra du'as. But in Sunnah and Nafil, the Prophet would read lengthy du'as. So yeah.
Okay, right. Anonymous is asking, studying the deen, should I start with a teacher or an institution?
It depends what you mean by what you mean by studying the deen. Although in truth, probably the answer is the same both ways. If you mean just learning your essentials, then yeah, a teacher more than likely you'll find within an institution. But if you're talking about doing a full-time course to become a scholar or a teacher and so on, then even with that, there's benefits in the institutions because the institutions provide teachers for most of the subjects that you need, whereas if you learn directly from a teacher, you may be limited in some of the subjects that you need. So now the way that it is, if you're learning higher knowledge, advanced knowledge, it's probably better to go to institutions. Allahu A'lam.
How can you get your friends on board regarding religious matters like praying without coming across as extreme or arrogant, especially if you have already tried it in a soft manner?
Keep on trying in a soft manner. Keep on trying.
Yeah. Or get a new set of friends?
It depends if they're damaging you.
Mm.
It depends if they're harmful to you. If they're weakening your own practice, then definitely you should loosen ties.
What if you introduce not your whole group, but some members of the group to a more religious group? Not socially, not to preach to them, because sometimes that might maybe tip the balance.
Yeah, it might do. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're the odd one out. Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if that works, then that works. Yeah, there's different ways you need to look at it. MashaAllah. Yeah, join this. Hold on. What are you laughing at?
This next question is great. Can we say Ameen to the dua of a Wahhabi?
This was asked last time, and I didn't answer last time because I wasn't sure on the answer, and I sent the question to a couple of shuyukh, and I'm still waiting for the answer back. So my inclination is no. That you should. If someone, it's not just about Wahhabi. This is more about a deviant, like a Shi'i makes a dua. We're not
even if it's a masnoon dua.
Even because we're not allowed to pray behind deviants. Like when we see it's makruh to pray behind a fasiq, a sinner, a deviant, because they're dishonoring the sacred law, because they've deviated away. So even if it's a masnoon dua, I mean, that's my gut instinct, that it's not because of the issue of prayer. I'm still waiting for a confirmation. I've sent the question to a couple of mashayikh, so I'm waiting confirmation. But it's not an issue.
I would incline the other way. If it was, if the dua itself, particularly if it was masnoon dua, I would, I don't know.
No, but if you're saying that, then the whole issue about praying behind them becomes an issue.
Yeah, prayer, but prayer.
No,
I'm not sure. I would equate the two things together. I think the formal prayer is something completely different for me.
How is it?
I'm speaking from ignorance here, but
no, that's masnoon. That's like he's praying a Salafi, like with one or two differences. The essential form of the prayer is the same. That's masnoon. That's masnoon. So Allah.
That's true.
So brother or sister, whoever's asking, ask that again, and I hope to have an answer, inshallah ta'ala, by next week.
Okay. So if someone talks themselves, acts strange through a lack of response to greetings, with wide eyes and hardly blinks, are these signs of someone who is possessed or interacts with jinn? My neighbor opposite my apartment shows these signs, so we always bump into each other a few times a week. Are there any du'as or adhkar I should read for protection? My screen's frozen. We've lost the Shaykh. I'm sure I'll be back.
Apologies, Sheikh. Apologies about that.
That's really freaky, man. We start talking about jinns and you just disappear. But did you hear the question?
I've lost all the questions here. You're gonna have to share the questions with me now because I've come out. I've lost all the questions.
Okay, so it's a jinn question basically. If someone, if you know someone who talks to themselves and acts strange, when greeted with wide eyes, hardly blinks, are these signs of someone possessed or interacts with jinns? The questioner has a neighbor opposite their apartment who shows these signs, and they sort of bump into them a few times a week, and we're asking for any du'as and adhkar that they should read for protection.
I don't know anything about jinn, alhamdulillah, and I pray that Allah keeps me as far away as possible from them. Find somebody, so the question is, just find somebody who has some expertise with it. Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, and any du'as for protection?
From jinn. Yeah. Read Al-Mu'awwidhatayn, read Surah Al-Falaq Al-Nas, read Ayat Al-Kursi before going to sleep. Read the chapters or the verses that the Prophet encouraged. Read Ayat Al-Kursi, read Al-Ikhlas Falaq Al-Nas.
Okay. And some people don't believe in jinn possession, right?
That's their problem. It's clear. Yeah, there are some here, and I know exactly who you're alluding to.
I'm just making general remarks.
Can I ask you a question here? And this is perhaps for everybody. Should we call out people who hold dodgy views?
Yeah, people can message in with their answer on that one. We'll come back to that.
Okay. You mentioned names. I kind of alluded to one earlier.
Yeah. We'll have a session on jinn one time, inshallah. Okay, this is a topical one. What's your view on what happened with the Sheikh Hamza and UAE Israel peace deal?
We touched upon that last time. My view is that when scholars get into the realms of politics, they're always going to get stung and burnt. So like peace forums and so on, it's political in nature. It doesn't change the scholarship, but it definitely casts some issues around it. Like, so supporting, even if it's not explicit support, just being connected to organizations that are tied into the government there. And the way the Salaf, Abu Hanif and the likes of them, is they distance themselves from governments. Unless there's a maslahah for them, unless there's a benefit for the Muslims. So
Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani, they took position, right?
I don't know, Imam Muhammad, I'm not sure, but definitely Abu Yusuf did.
Isn't that how in the court of Haroon al-Rashid, isn't that where he met Imam Shafi'i when he was about to be executed?
Who, Imam Muhammad or?
Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani, that he overheard him making dua and so caught his attention. I thought that was how he met him.
Yeah. So, I mean, Qadi Abu Yusuf, he was Qadi al-Qudat, he was the chief judge of the Muslim state at that time. So he took a stance that was different from his teacher, but he was able to influence. And that's the key point. He was able to influence the leader. Whereas now, like, you get close to the government, you become puppets for them.
Easy question for you. Mortgages, are they permissible on a house with the intention to put it on rent and make it a source of income?
I don't think so. Mortgages generally, no, they're not lawful. Dealing with riba, no.
I want to buy a house in the UK. What advice would you give, as it does involve interest? A mufti who comes on TV says that it's permissible to buy one house as it is a necessity.
The fatwa that I give based on the scholars that I took from is that there is no such necessity. So even though that's a fatwa that's given quite commonly by ulama here, it's questionable. It's questionable to say that there is a necessity. Wallahu a'lam.
Is it haram to disobey any of the COVID government rules or recommendations in the slightest, or is it haram for the legal requirements, gatherings of 30 people? I think for Monday it'll be 6 people, right? For socially, 6 people.
If it's haram, then Felicity House is doing haram all the time.
Yeah. But Felicity House is educational, so that's exempt from this rule, right?
Yeah, but last week was a lot more than 30. I mean, I was closer to, it was a large number. Allahumma salli alayhi. So, saying haram, no, I wouldn't say it's haram. I wouldn't say it's haram. Like, where there's a real concern that a person may be affected, then yes, then you need to be careful. But a lot of these rules, I mean, yes, you need to be a law-abiding citizen to an extent, but when the rules themselves are just a joke, where the government haven't got a clue themselves, and the Prime Minister is a clown, and unless it's a serious rule, and so I'm rambling here, but if it's gonna affect the wider Muslim public, then yes, you should. Like masjids, for example. Masjids, like, they need to be careful because potentially they can get closed. But a lot of the rules don't really make any sense. So haram, I doubt we can say it's haram.
Cutting ties with blood relatives. What's the Islamic hukum on that? And what if your attempts to mend those relations have come to nothing?
You should never cut ties with blood relations. You should never cut ties, especially the closest, your father and mother. You should never cut ties with them. The Prophet ﷺ said, the one who cuts ties with family does not enter Jannah. You should never cut ties with family. Even if they wrong you, then you just safeguard yourself from the harm and wrong, but don't break ties. And break ties is like avoiding them, not speaking to them, making a point of not responding to salams or greetings, anything of that nature. Should never get to that point. So if they're wronging you, if it's like your brother, your sister, or some uncles or cousins, and they're causing you problems, then protect yourself, safeguard yourself. But you should not actively make a point of cutting ties from them. But then, if they're cutting ties with you, then you make the effort. You make the effort to reach out to them. If that's always thrown back into your face, then just occasionally make an effort. Allah ta'ala, you're excused. The sign of a true believer, the sign of a true believer is not the one who deals with others in the it's not the one who deals with people who are good to them in a good manner. It's the one who deals with people who are bad to them in a good manner. That's a sign of a true believer.
Yeah. Makeup. Is it permissible for women to wear makeup in front of non-mahram?
No, it's not.
And can you define makeup as well? For those of us who don't really know these details.
Well, what do you mean, can you define makeup? Makeup's makeup, man. Just a woman dolling herself up. That's all makeup is.
Yeah, but like
In your face.
Is eyeliner makeup? Is it?
No.
See, that's so,
Yeah.
you need to educate us men about these things.
I need to learn about this as well. Why do you think I'm a makeup expert?
So, sorry, just I missed the response. Is it permissible for women to wear makeup in front of non-mahrams?
Simple answer is no, it's forbidden. It's haram for her to do that. For a woman to accentuate her beauty and put that in the face of وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَ تَبَرُّجِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى. They should not go out and display the beauty as they used to do in the first age of ignorance. So
And perfume as well?
The Prophet's nice and categorically forbade that. A woman leaving the house with perfume on. He categorically forbade that.
And it's definitely not haram for men to wear perfume. I think some brothers forget that it's not haram for them to wear it, right?
Yeah, but a lot of guys, they just wear some nasty chemicals, man. Just spray some stuff on them. Man. If it's decent stuff, then fair enough. Yeah, men should wear it.
Mm-hmm.
But just generally, like, so just generally, a woman should not wear makeup. She should simplify her looks. It's not about looking as attractive as possible and going on, but doing the exact opposite when she's alone with her husband, not really caring about her appearance. Wallahu a'lam.
Just somewhat connected to that. What's the deal with spending huge amounts of money on perfume? And people quoting Sayyidina Umar saying, even if you spend a third of your wealth, because a third of what really? If you're like a billionaire and you spend a third of that just on one bottle of Ansar Oud, perfume.
What about spending £300 on a cut of meat?
Yeah, I love meat. I'm not gonna hide that, but I would say that's to me that feels like israf. Wallahu alam. I'm not gonna say for everyone, but to me, £300 for just one slab of meat. That's when I start looking at vegetables. To me, but I mean, it's not a fatwa. It's just to me that just doesn't sit right.
What I've understood is that quite literally there are no limits with perfume. There are no limits with perfume. Wallahu a'lam. That's what I've understood.
Okay.
I just want to jump ahead because I'm just looking ahead at one or two questions. The sister Nika's asked the question: can you break ties with non-Muslim family? Can you? So just want to answer that question. There's a verse. اللهم صل عليه وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا. A verse revealed in relation to a companion who was getting attacked by his parents for becoming Muslim. So Allah subhanahu guided that companion by telling him, if the two of you strive to have you worship gods along with Allah, don't obey them, but live with them in the best of manner. Don't obey them, but live with them in the best of manner. So that's parents who are not Muslim, who are trying to get them to worship gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, commit the ultimate, which is shirk. Even then, and so a parallel now would be somebody who's become Muslim and parents are, let's say, Christians or Sikhs or Hindus, and they're insulting his religion, insulting the Quran, not allowing him to pray and so on. Even then, especially with father and mother, even then the ties can't be broken. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay.
We've got 10 minutes left, so let's choose the juiciest or the most relevant question, or whatever you deem to be most important.
If you are ready for marriage but your parents are not accepting, what should you do?
Allahumma salli alayhi. Parents not accepting.
Would that differ if you're the boy or the girl?
Hold on. Did the person say Arsenal beat Liverpool? What's that got to do with anything?
Yeah. And then they think they're going to get another question answered later on.
Oh,
they're asking about their cat, whether they can have.
Yeah, forget your cat after that. Forget your cat. Go on, so what was that about?
So you're ready for marriage, but your parents are not accepting. I'm not sure whether that means they're not accepting that you are allowed to get married yet, or
try and convince them. Try and convince them, put pressure on them. Try and convince them. There shouldn't be a reason for. Parents are not meant to be barriers. They're meant to aid and assist them. At the same time, there may be a reason why they're not accepting that you yourself don't see. So try and convince them, and maybe you're actually doing the wrong thing. So maybe they'll be able to make you understand why.
Should you send your kids to the prom?
Do you know what? I think that's a wind up there. Forget that.
Yeah, okay. And we had a couple of questions earlier on, just quick questions. Can you pray behind Saudi imams and also Deobandis, Salafis and Shias, all in one group?
Anybody who carries deviant aqidah, it is makruh tahreem to pray behind. It's severely disliked to pray behind them. If you have no other option, like a Jumu'ah prayer, where the only masjid that's praying is a masjid with his deviants, then you have no choice but to. But other than that, you should try and avoid it. But specifically about the Saudi imams, our teachers from Sham, from Syria, they all prayed them in the Haramain without repeating their prayers. Wallahu.
I mean, pretty much everyone has deviant aqidah, right? When you look deeply enough, wouldn't you say?
That's why would you say that?
Well, but every person who, I mean, I remember when I first studied aqidah, everyone looked super deviant to me.
Yeah, and I'm also you haven't shaken that view off, have you?
I have. It's just maybe on private forums is different, but no, it's very difficult to, and you see some of the really great masters of aqidah when they're giving their classes, you know, lots of people seem deviant. But if you look at micro, when you try to teach us aqidah, and you ask, you know, the default Muslim, maybe who hasn't done a lot of study, they hold a lot of deviant beliefs, right?
In these times, yeah.
Yeah, not knowingly, but okay.
Let me jump ahead. I feel this is a question worth answering. Can you please advise on family planning? Is it permissible in Islam? Just a quick answer on that. As long as it's not out of fear of provision, as long as it's not out of fear that I can't afford it, I can't afford to raise kids. Ar-Razaq wallah, the provider is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's any other reason, And it's agreed between the couple, between the two. It's agreed because each one of them has the right. Each one of them has a right to have children. So any other reason is fine.
Okay. What's the views on peers?
Oh, what?
Peer sabs.
Oh,
what are they? Should you follow them?
Peer means a wali. That's what I've been told that peer means wali in Farsi. A peer is essentially meant to be a spiritual guide, and that's not restricted. Although the term peer is a subcontinent term, but spiritual guides exist across the Muslim world, and so the general conditions of taking bay'ah and following a spiritual guide apply. The people of Sharia, the people who hold firmly to the law of God and His Messenger, they're calling people and raising the states of people, educating people, and at the same time providing spiritual guidance. Then if they meet those requirements, then absolutely. But not just peers, but there's too many fakes out there, spiritual guides. There's too many of them who are fakes. And what will help you with that, ensure that you have your essential learning of religion. That will help you. That will help navigate through a lot of what's out there.
Okay. Is it true, actually, does the iddah sitting be within the time she menstruates on the time she is upon her clean periods?
What are you saying?
I don't know.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I think is the iddah sitting about clean periods or
Read the question again, because I can't see that question.
it says, does the iddah sitting be within the time she menstruates on the time she is upon? I think it's a typo. I think it's all the time she's upon her clean periods. Is it the menstruation periods or the clean periods?
Just quick answer. What's the answer according to the Hanifis?
According to the Hanifis, it's the on her menstruating periods.
Pre-menstruation.
According to Imam Shafi'i, right, it's the other. The word can apply to both, right?
Allah, you're a faqih, mashallah.
So one mas'ala I remember.
Innaka la faqih. Mashallah, in all of your learning, that's the one thing you mentioned, remembered. It's about women's periods, yeah.
Okay. Day of Judgment, will we be 80 meters tall or not? Or will we care?
I have no idea.
Okay. Right. What's your view on the Hagia Sophia becoming a masjid again?
Alhamdulillah. يومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. I did a khutbah on that day at the masjid. يومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. Alhamdulillah.
Did it ever stop becoming a masjid in reality?
A masajid, always masajid, yeah. But mashallah, and in a time when the Muslims are battered left, right, and centre, that was just a little brief moment of joy that entered into that. And honestly, I mean, I don't know. I think I said that in the khutbah, and I still hold to it. Those who got problems with it should even question their iman. Like, what type of munafiq would start saying that? Like, keep it as a museum and not as a masjid. Wallahu a'lam. Alhamdulillah. يومئذ يفرح المؤمنون بنصر الله.
How should we make up for salahs that we missed?
Work out how many you've missed, estimate it, add some more on just to be safe, and then prioritize it. Whenever you have any spare time, just do as many as possible. If the numbers are so vast, then shorten the prayers, like drop certain sunnahs within them. Allah, but make that a priority. Make it an absolute priority to get through as many as possible.
Sheikh Ijaz Iqbal is asking what you advise if you have to choose between the time before Fajr or after Fajr.
For what?
Presumably for du'as and prayer.
Before Fajr. Before Fajr. Before Fajr is one of the most special moments in the day for acceptance of du'a, before Fajr.
Can a female over 55 years old travel abroad alone due to emergency to see parents without mahram allowed in any madhab?
As a general point, age is not a factor in terms of women traveling with a mahram or without a mahram. Age is not a factor. But there the questioner said as an emergency, due to see the parents. Emergency makes it lawful. So, but that would have been the same whether it's a 20-year-old or a 55 or a 70-year-old. The emergency is what made it lawful, not the age. Allah.
Okay. What's your view on herd immunity? Was it practiced in the Islamic world when diseases struck?
I have no idea. What's your view on that?
I've not heard anything about it being practiced. But yeah, it's something we'd have to look at. What else did we have? If one goes against something which is agreed upon in all four madhabs, such as a late night topic we discussed a couple of nights ago.
Who's asking this?
Anonymous.
Anonymous it's from that group.
Yeah. Is that classed as deviancy?
That'll be Burhan. He's always worried about deviance. No, it's not. Oh, I know. Oh, it's one of those. Oh, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Faster, it's you boys. Say them. No, that's not deviancy. Even it's that you can call it shudud. It's just like behaving in a strange manner. But to say deviancy, no, deviancy is more about aqidah. It's not about practice. Allahu Akbar.
And
final question, because I need to disappear now.
Sorry? Should we homeschool our kids if we can?
You answer that. We discussed that before, and definitely the answer is yes. If you can, definitely yes.
Inshallah. So we're going to meet again, inshallah.
2 weeks' time, bi'idhnillah. And
we'll see you then. We'll try and convince one of the other boys to come as well.
No, it'll become chaotic.
Okay. All right.
Unless we're okay with one of them replacing you. I'd love to.
I'm up for that.
I'd love to have Burhan on here.
I'm dying to be anonymous attendee. So, we'll see.
What's your predictions? Liverpool Leeds. I'm saying 5-1.
I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be one.
No, it's not.
It's going to be a margin of 1 goal. If they've been playing like they've been playing pre-season, for sure.
Pre-season.
They've been really sloppy. They've been really. If Henderson is back, then I think they'll do well.
Yeah, captain.
Yeah. But,
okay, just quickly, last one. Prediction of top 3.
Liverpool, City,
Arsenal. I reckon Arteta's going to take it around.
I think Arsenal looking really dangerous, but I think Chelsea.
No, I don't think so. Because he's bought too many players, and Lampard's still a novice in the game. I don't think so. I reckon Arsenal.
All right, we'll see.
And I reckon Solskjaer will be sacked by the end of the year.
Yeah. It's all resting on that new player, Bruno.
Yeah.
Haroon's lookalike. It's all on his shoulders. He's the only one who can pass. Yeah, so
what are these Leeds fans on here for?
I don't know. We didn't.
All these.
La hawla wa la quwwata. Is this the time we live in?
خلاص إن شاء الله. We'll finish with that. Alhamdulillah رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.